Bonnie Nieves, welcome to Competencies Without a Classroom. I am pumped to have you here today. You and I, Bonnie, we've had the chance to connect a few times in these last few weeks, so I'm excited that our listeners are able to share in that experience as well. Bonnie, you're an educator yourself, so you know that teachers, these are busy individuals. They don't have time for fluff. So we jump right into what our listeners are coming here to learn about. And really, this question helps to set a tone for the rest of the interview. With that, Bonnie, when it comes to pineapple on pizza, are you a yes or a no on that one?
A definite no.
Bonnie, okay. Do you have a favorite pizza? Do you have a go-to?
Just pepper and onion. And mushrooms if I'm feeling fancy.
If you're feeling fancy. Okay, cool. Well, luckily we're just getting started, Bonnie. You have some time to win our listeners back. I'm of the belief that they're all pro pineapple. But before we get into the real kind of meat of it today, give us some background, Bonnie. So where are you're calling in from, and what are you teaching this year?
I am from Central Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And I teach high school biology. This year it's freshmen, and sometimes it's sophomores, typically freshmen. And there are other times where I teach anatomy and physiology to juniors and seniors.
Fantastic. Have you heard of Ologies, the podcast?
No.
It's one I think you should check out. I mean, it's very broad. I'm not a science person myself, but so they interview everyone whose title ends in ologist. So it's really interesting. My partner is an ecologist. So every time we're in the car, that's the podcast that gets played. And I generally enjoy it. The host, Ali Ward, she's really great. I should check it out.
Yeah, nice. I'm writing it down.
There you go. Okay. So Bonnie, let's get into it. Season 1 of Competencies Without a Classroom was spent talking to industry professionals, learning all about the 21st century skills or the competencies that they're looking for when hiring and building out their 21st century teams. So now we have a better understanding of what skills they're prioritizing and what they look like in the workplace. Season 2 is all about highlighting people like yourself, the educators who are doing a great job of developing those skills in their students and amplifying your voice so that other teachers can learn from your experiences. So that's what the first question I'm going to ask you today is all about. I've titled it Borrow and Steal. This is your chance, Bonnie, to kind of get on the soapbox and share one example from your classroom about one of the ways that you're developing one of these 21st century skills in your students. So do me a favor, Bonnie, and can you share with our listeners what that looks like for you in your high school science classroom?
Yeah, I just take my quizzes and turn them into visual representations. So students have to create a visual representation of the same thing that would have been on a quiz. So what this would look like to make a quick swap out would just be, think about the content that a quiz would be assessing, because they're typically short, right? 10, maybe 15 questions. So think about the things you really need kids to get from that, and then ask them to show what they know in an infographic or a meme or a poster. And what I get from that as the teacher is it shows me how the students are visualizing it themselves. And if they have a really good grasp on something, or if they're just going to the internet and grabbing pictures, or are they showing something abstract that I can see that they have a connection that I didn't expect, or maybe they have the connection that I absolutely did expect. The great part about this that I have found, that I've been doing it for a while, is that I can really adjust the aperture of this, right? I can make it as wide or as narrow, as focused or as broad as I want to, just by asking kids to use certain words or not. Or maybe I provide the image for them or not.
Yeah.
So lots of room to play, and the kids really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So do you give students a fair bit of flexibility, and like, is infographic an example, or do you say, hey, instead of the quiz today, instead of this being multiple choice, I want you to come back with an infographic, or is it a bit more open-ended?
Yes, it really depends on the class.
Sure.
So especially now, because I just got a new group of students,
Right.
and they're not really familiar with this type of freedom yet. So yeah, I give them images to choose from,
Right.
and then tell them label up this image, and show me what you have found about the, and I list the content on the assignment, and they identify it on there, and then add like little speech bubbles to it and things like that.
That's super cool. So if we were to distill that down, and that probably touches on a number of different competencies, from communication to problem solving to just the figure it outness, if that was a skill. If you ever a parent ask, why are they doing this instead of a quiz, would you be able to boil it down into a competency that they're developing by doing the activity this way instead of a traditional quiz?
It's being able to communicate their ideas effectively.
Yeah.
And one thing that I find is that when you think of a typical classroom, it's always teachers give the notes, teachers give the lecture, teachers give the assignment, and students take things, but they don't typically give anything back. So I'm asking the students to give me a visual representation of what they know. So they have to create it and give it back to me, rather than just deciding which of the answers are correct. So it gives a much deeper understanding.
I love that so much. And you've probably seen some pretty creative responses to that kind of ask, right? So what if I'm a teacher down the hall and I hear that Bonnie's doing this? It sounds pretty cool, but I'm a new teacher. I know I have to work through all of my standards and outcomes that I'm reporting towards. This kind of sounds like it's one more thing. Like how do you justify that as a teacher so it doesn't become one more thing?
I just replace the quiz with that.
Yeah.
It's a swap.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an addition at all.
That's an easy answer. And after you've done it a few times, I'm sure it's become almost a routine where it's not extra work. It's just how you administer that piece of assessment, right? So
Yeah. And the best part about it is it can evolve. If the kids do something that they can hold on to, then as the concept that they're learning starts to develop, they can just go back to their infographic or their meme or their poster and add stuff to it. So then it starts to be almost like a visual note book that they have.
yeah, just grows with them over time. I love that so much for all the reasons you already know about, with my bias towards using something like a digital portfolio. All right. My third question for you is one of my favorite ones to ask. Superintendent. So you're the superintendent of your school district. You're tasked with deciding one competency. So one of these 21st century skills that each student needs to display evidence of in that digital portfolio in order to graduate. What is that one skill?
Critical thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, as a science teacher, as a biologist, probably not super surprising I said that, but it's really about media literacy as a creator and a consumer. So no matter what they end up doing in their lives, they're going to be either consuming or creating something, hopefully both.
Mhm.
And being able to do that effectively will pay off for everyone.
It will pay off in huge dividends for everyone. Yeah. So Bonnie, that was awesome. Let's wrap up with some rapid fire questions for you. Okay.
Okay.
What's a life skill that you weren't taught in high school, but maybe that you wish you were?
Empathy.
Yeah. You know what? That one comes up a lot from the conversations we've been having so far. So I love that. You could write anything on a billboard. Everyone's going to see that billboard.
Mm-hmm.
What are you writing on it?
What is the best thing about your day?
That is super interesting. So you're actually having people reflect. You know what? I've asked that question a bunch of times now, and I don't think anyone's posed a question on
Really?
that billboard, right? Not to put you on the spot, Bonnie, but what's your best thing about today so far?
Oh, the best. It was first thing this morning. I'm in my room, turning on my incense and my neon sign, and a student who has been incredibly difficult for all the teachers came into my classroom 15 minutes early, sat down, and said, "I am so happy to be here today." And I said, "Really? Why?" He said, "I just really like your class."
Wow. If that doesn't make your week, I don't know what else. Well, that's a fantastic message,
Yeah,
Bonnie.
it was amazing. I texted my husband right away. Like, can you believe it? I knew it was going to happen. It was inevitable.
Yeah,
But today was the day. It was the first day of the rest of the year for us.
that's awesome. I mean, those are the moments, right? Those are the moments that make this profession so magical, right?
Yeah.
I think you've already answered this with empathy, but IQ or EQ, you can only pick one. Which one are you picking?
It's EQ.
Yeah, all day. Did you have a favorite teacher growing up, Bonnie?
I did. Mr. Ferreira.
Okay. Well, what did he teach? Was he elementary, high school?
He was junior high math.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Favorite book that you've read? Maybe it had such an impact on you that you wish you would have read it before you were 18.
Atomic Habits.
I'm a huge fan of that book as well. It's in the bookcase back there. James Clear. I cannot recommend that book enough. It came up a few times in season 1. So pick that up. If there's one book you read this year, it's Atomic Habits. Right? It sets everything up to be successful when you have the right framework in place. Yeah.
Yep.
Bonnie, if you had a magic wand, you can change one thing about the state curriculum or just about K-12 education in general. What would you change, edit, or add?
Promoting students based on their age. You go when you're ready. There's no such thing as, there should be no such thing as a 5-year-old is kindergarten and 17 years old is junior in high school. Yeah. And I saw a quote once that, and I can't remember who said it, was promoting kids based on their age is the same as ranking athletes by their jersey number. Doesn't make sense.
No, you're right. I've thought about that a lot. I have a niece and nephew who are a little bit younger, and one was born in January and one was born in December. And just the difference that a student has, especially at that younger age, pretty crazy to think they're both going to be in the same grade when there's 11 months out of the 5 years that they've been alive. That's difference between the two, right? So. Cool, Bonnie, this is awesome. I think that's a super actionable takeaway, turning quizzes into something a bit more engaging for the students to come back and use their creativity to display competency or mastery of the work that they're doing within your class. So I know teachers will really benefit from that. Where can the people listening go to connect with you and learn a bit more about you, Bonnie?
Yeah, so I am on Twitter at Biology Goddess and on Clubhouse at Biology Goddess. Oh, that's my new
Look at you go.
Yeah. There all day. And I have a website, educateonpurpose.com, that's just going to be coming out, like a full launch in a couple of months.
Nice.
And I have a book coming out I hope late spring.
Yeah.
That the name of that is Be Awesome on Purpose, which is about my story from how I started being a paraprofessional working with teachers in the science department to becoming a gradeless, independent, rebellious science teacher. That's
so cool, Bonnie. I'm excited to read that book. I'm excited to check out the website. I'm not on Clubhouse, but I'm excited to connect with you on Twitter. Bonnie, I can't thank you enough for making time today and sharing your story with teachers. Have a fantastic rest of your week.
Yeah, thank you so much, Damien.